Hi! Welcome to this part of my review featuring spectacular settlements. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review, featuring this book that allows you to create all sorts of outposts, villages, cities, it may well be the only book that you will ever need in your RPG career to create all sorts of settlements. So please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about villages. Found in the backcountry, scattered hither and yon within the realms. Villages are commonplace settlements most adventurers will come across frequently during their travels. They can exist almost anywhere, so long as there are basic resources available to sustain them. Villages are communities vital to the lifeblood of a kingdom. The dominant feature of a village is what it produces, which defines its value to those outside of it. These are communities that are small and not heavily developed. A village is not where one goes to get resupplied or to take up a great quest. Rather, it is a place that may be in need of able bodies, whether it be to fulfill a task that no one else is qualified for, such as driving away a local threat, or something more mundane, like some extra hands to help to fetch in the harvest. Certain members of the village will make regular trips to the nearest town to sell their goods on market day, usually to those who will refine it. In this section of the book, you have steps and tables to create all sorts of villages. Step 1 is basic information. The tables in this step will provide broad or fundamental details about your settlement. There is Step 2, community. The tables in this step will provide details about the people that live here and certain aspects of society. Step 3 is points of interest. These tables determine what locations are in your settlement, including shops, services, and places of worship. There is an optional extra step, which is extra intrigue, filled with tables that can add additional flavor to the settlement. Let's talk about these steps. In basic information, you can determine the age of the village. Of all of the settlement types, a village is possibly the most fragile. If a village is new, that will also often indicate a smaller population, intent on working the land they've settled. If it is old, the population may be larger due to growing families and increased generation of whatever they produce. So you could get a result of an established village. The village has been settled for a few years. They have been able to successfully sustain themselves, and the families have started to grow. Maybe you obtain the result of ancient. The village was established near to or more than a century ago. When it comes to hardships, villages are quite possibly the most vulnerable of all settlement types, as hinted at earlier. One would hope that if a hardship had struck a significant enough time ago, the village may have recovered from it, or at least worked towards doing so. Hardships, depending on whether they happened weeks, months, years, or even decades ago, will leave a lasting impression on the villagers. Maybe you obtain results such as no hardship. The village has been lucky, and nothing has troubled it so far. Maybe you obtain the result of 3 hardships. The village has experienced 3 difficult situations. Next we have the hardship type. Perhaps you obtain the result of famine, food shortage. If the village normally produces some kind of food, it did not produce this time. If they typically get their food from the market, they had difficulties doing so for a time. Perhaps you obtain the result of loss of community leader. A key member of the community died or went missing. Then we have the hardship outcome. Perhaps you obtain the result of heavy losses. The village's losses were awful, and recovery is proving difficult. Or perhaps they were moderate losses. The village's losses were rough, but recovery is likely, though it may be tough. You can also determine the size of the village. This is the number of currently standing structures. Perhaps you obtain the result of small, up to 30 standing structures. Or perhaps it is a very large village, with up to 120 standing structures. Then we have conditions. Key features that give your village a real visual identity. Maybe you obtain the result of ruined. The village is little but rubble and debris, with perhaps a few exceptions. This could have been the result of a war, raid, earthquake, or storm. Maybe you obtained the result of hearty. Everything here appears to be well built and robust. The village seems mindful of cleanliness and the settlement's upkeep. Roads and paths are well groomed and flattened. Next we have environment. Villages tend to be rural by their very nature. As established settlements attract more and more traffic, they grow and become towns and cities. So it would make sense that small villages would be in places without that kind of traffic. Perhaps it is a coastal village. The village is near a large body of water, such as a lake or an ocean. Maybe it's an underground village. The village is within a large network of caves. Then we have specialty. A village's specialty is likely the reason it exists in the first place and is, potentially, the main thing that the village is known for, such as a particular crop or the craft of a certain item. Maybe you get the result of location proximity. The village itself may not be very special, but it is near somewhere that is special, such as a stunning vista or a site of historical significance. Maybe the village's specialty is livestock. The village is known for breeding strong and healthy, perhaps even pedigree animals, such as horses, cattle, sheep, etc. When it comes to resources, how do the villagers get by from day to day? What do they spend their time doing? How do they put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads? This can be related to the village's specialty, but does not have to be. Perhaps you obtain the result of dairy. Pastures contain cows, goats, or sheep for milk, or chickens for eggs. Additional animals may also be bred for sale. Maybe you obtain the result of herbs. Herbs grow in the village and are used for alchemy, medicine, or simply for cooking, and are typically tended by an individual due to their more specialized and potentially dangerous nature. There's also the recent history of the village. Village gossip is a major aspect of day-to-day life. What do the villagers talk about? What topics are discussed by the village elders or folks gathered around the local well? These are events that may have occurred within the past few weeks or months, up to a year at most. Perhaps you obtain the result of attacks. Members of the community have been attacked, either by brigands or perhaps monsters. Maybe there is good fortune. The village has received favorable notice from a nearby ruler or entity of note. Now, when it comes to community, a village more than any other kind of settlement is closest to a family. It is typically small enough that most folks know everyone else or near enough. When it comes to population density, maybe you obtain the result of sparse. People are living here, but not many. They are able to handle all tasks that need doing, but perhaps with some difficulty. Maybe the village is dense. The village seems to have a large amount of people for its size. There are many hands available to help with any work that needs doing. When it comes to demographics, depending on where the village is and its proximity to other destinations, one might find different people within its borders. Perhaps you obtain the result of normal distribution. 50% of a primary race, 25% of a secondary race, 15% of a tertiary race, or 10% of other. Perhaps you obtain the result of only 100% of a single race in that village. Then we have disposition. Villages, being relatively small groups of people, tend to have very unified overall dispositions. Their attitudes can be the result of recent events, past history, regional issues, or tensions common in the area. Perhaps you obtain the result of unfriendly. Locals don't care much for visitors, looking upon them with contempt, fear, or suspicion. Perhaps you obtain the result of friendly. Locals are generally friendly, welcoming, and slow to take offense. When it comes to law enforcement, perhaps you obtain the result of sheriff. Or perhaps there is no sheriff, and there is always a disorganized rabble. When it comes to leadership, maybe there is an external ruler, or a single elected leader. When it comes to population wealth, perhaps you obtain the result of impoverished. Around half of the population struggles to carve out even a meager existence. Or maybe you get the result of wealthy. The villagers are well off, perhaps even able to indulge once in a while. When it comes to crime, maybe you obtain the result of uncommon. Crime does not occur often, but when it does, it is noteworthy. Maybe you obtain the result of rare. Most villagers have no personal experience with crime, and few know people that have. Now, when it comes to points of interest, they will be very different to what one would expect to find in a trading post, or even a small town. The folks that live in a village live simple, self-sufficient lives, generally keeping to themselves. Because of this, there are often few points of interest, save those that facilitate this sustainability. When it comes to places of worship, perhaps there is a small place of worship or it's very large. It could be an altar, a small shrine, or perhaps a tiny shack. Or maybe there is a sanctuary, a large, well-appointed structure able to comfortably accommodate up to a few hundred people. When it comes to the fervency of local following, maybe you obtain the result of quiet. Adherents to the faith are inconspicuous, unless one knows what to look for. Perhaps gestures, items of clothing, etc. Maybe you obtain the result of fervent. Followers are outspoken, with little or no fear of reproach. They may sing or speak to the masses. When it comes to alignment of the faith, maybe most are evil, or perhaps neutral. Concerning places of gathering, maybe there are small places of gathering, or very large places of gathering, such as amphitheaters, dance halls, or a gathering hall. Concerning other locations, maybe there are a few very small or medium places, such as bakeries, butcheries, smithies, apothecaries, magic shops, or taverns. Now, concerning extra intrigue, a little extra intrigue never hurts. It can help turn a vaguely interesting village into a deeply captivating one. There could be various events such as funerals, political events, weddings, local festivities. Maybe there are rumors, drums of war. Neighboring cities are preparing to go to war with one another. Or maybe there are more taxes. An increase in taxes is about to be implemented to pay for an expensive and ambitious project. When it comes to superstitions, maybe you obtain the result of half a chicken will cure any number of ailments, from plague to pimples, when tied to the afflicted area. Or maybe evil spirits can lurk within the leaves of cabbages and sprouts. You must carve a holy sign into the bottom before cooking them. You could determine goings on such as children missing. Some of the younger villagers have gone missing. How long have they been gone? What were they last seen doing? Maybe the result is, they are mine. Two villagers are competing for the hand of a local heartthrob. When it comes to opportunities, maybe you obtain the result of hunting. A spirit hunts someplace within the village. Something was done to this person while they were alive that has tied the spirit to this place. Maybe it's party time. A festival is coming up soon, and a shipment carrying something important for the event has not arrived. When it comes to harsh weather, maybe there is ideal weather in the village. Recent conditions have been as good as possible. Work has been able to progress better than usual, and any grown resource may be having a richer yield than normal. Or perhaps there are wildfires. There have been fires either nearby or some ways off. Either way, they are too close for comfort. Ash can be seen on the ground, smoke can be smelled in the air, and forests nearby are in danger, if not ablaze already. When it comes to danger level, maybe the village has a low danger level. Dangers or hazards are a rarity. Or maybe there is extreme danger. Dangers or hazards abound. It is never safe to go anywhere alone. And what sorts of dangers? Perhaps there are workplace accidents, or disease, or wildlife attack. At the end of this section, there are sample villages. Let me read a bit of them to you. You have the Urzatz Canopy. Urzatz Canopy was formerly the peaceful village of Urzatz, a quaint halfling settlement nestled amongst the towering redwood trees. They lived in tranquility, However, this was fragile, and shattered as soon as Urzatz was ransacked by violent bands of thieves. To try and prevent even further bloodshed and crimes, the last villagers of Urzatz took their settlement to the trees, rebuilding among the branches to leave their former lives behind on the ashen floor. Then we have Fishing Stone Village. Settling in a cave could potentially have many perks, at least that was the logic the founders of Fishing Stone Village went with. The added security provided by the rock and earth gave a sense of seclusion, where the locals could fish in peace. For Fishing Stone, it is exactly that, an underground fishing village. Then we have Crachton. Crachton is an ancient dwarven village located high in a rugged mountain pass. It has survived 4 major hardships, from disease and war to political corruption and the assassination of its leadership. This village, however, was devastated by plague and abandoned. 10 years later, a tribe of nomadic orcs discovered the abandoned village while hunting. Now they claim it as their own. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about towns. I like the variety of all of the tables. You truly get a good sense that the village is that bridge between outposts and towns. It is large enough to offer resources and opportunities for adventure, but depending on the scope of your campaign, your stay in a village could be temporary, just a step before moving to towns. Or if you want to invest in that village, perhaps you want to make it grow through your adventures and by helping the villagers. Perhaps it will eventually grow to become a town. Or if you like it as it is, it's perfect for adventure opportunities that are not so grandiose compared to conflicts that could have universal implications. Thank you for watching this part of the review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending right through RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.